Now, in a bid to thwart Washington's attempt to expand Taiwan's participation at the United Nations, Chinese President Xi Jinping called on all nations to defend the status quo of the UN-backed international order. While speaking at the 50th anniversary of China's admission to the UN, Xi Jinping said, and I quote, "Every country in the world should uphold the international system with the UN at its core, the international order based on international law and the basic norm of international relations governed by the UN Charter," end of quote. The UNGA had passed a resolution on October the 25th, 1971. This was to include the People's Republic of China in the body. It replaced Taiwan's official name at the world body to Republic of China. Slamming America's support to Taiwan, Xi Jinping stressed that only 193 member states of the UN can collectively make international rules. He advocated for cooperation rather than confrontation and opposed any kind of hegemonism, power politics, unilateralism and protectionism. Xi's comment comes after a meeting between officials of US and Taiwan. The US State Department in a statement said, and I quote, "The discussion focused on supporting Taiwan's ability to participate meaningfully at the UN and contribute its valuable expertise to address global challenges," end of quote. Taiwanese president took to Twitter to thank US for supporting Taiwan. She said Taipei always stands ready to work with like-minded partners and wishes to contribute its expertise in international forums. Ever since China's accession to the UN, Beijing has always backed or blocked Taiwan's participation in all UN activities and bodies, including the World Health Organization. This, in turn, has deprived Taiwan from accessing crucial information, such as the pandemic-related health alerts. Following the statement by the U.S. State Department, state-owned Chinese media has slammed the U.S. for trying to contain China by expanding Taiwan's international participation. It also said that such moves would create divisions in the United Nations.
Today, we're seeing the same type of collaboration.
Latest news, China. Taiwan defense minister says island must defend itself. Biden calls out China's Taiwan actions as coercive. And India tests nuclear-capable missiles amid tensions with China. This is the news of today. Associated Press headliner, Taiwan defense minister says island must defend itself. Dated October 27, 2021. Taiwan's defense minister said Thursday that the island must defend itself and not depend entirely on others for help if China were to launch an attack, even as Taiwan's president said she had faith the U.S. would defend it. The country must rely on itself, and if friends or other groups can help us, then it's like I said before, we're happy to have it, but we cannot completely depend on it, the minister, Kuo-chemg, told reporters after being questioned in the legislature as part of a session on national defense. Tensions between Taiwan and China have risen to the highest level in decades, with China sending record-breaking numbers of fighter jets toward international airspace close to the island and stepping up a campaign of military harassment. Taiwan's defense minister has said that China would have comprehensive capabilities to invade the island by 2025. China claims Taiwan as part of its national territory, although the island has been self-ruled since its split from the communist-ruled mainland in 1949 after a long civil war. Chiu has called the rising tensions between China and Taiwan the most severe he has seen in 40 years. Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen said in an interview with CNN last Thursday that she was confident the U.S. would defend Taiwan if China made a move against the island, in which she told CNN reporters, "I do have faith given the long-term relationship we have with the U.S. and also the support of the people of the U.S. as well as Congress." Tsai also confirmed the presence of a small number of U.S. troops on the island to help train their Taiwanese counterparts. Though the U.S. has no formal diplomatic relationship with the Taiwanese government, it has strong unofficial ties. Under the Trump administration, the U.S. stepped up weapons sales to Taiwan. Further, the U.S. has a policy of strategic ambiguity toward Taiwan, where it has been deliberately vague about whether it would defend the island in the face of an assault. However, the U.S. has a policy to support the island's self-defense, including by providing it arms, as declared in the Taiwan Relations Act. China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs spoke out against the confirmation of troops, saying it is firmly opposed to any form of official contracts and military ties between the U.S. and Taiwan, and that no one should underestimate the strong determination, firm will, and strong capacity of China to defend its sovereignty. Separately, the Chinese Defense Ministry said in a statement that China strongly opposes military exchanges between the U.S. and Taiwan and called on the U.S. to clarify the situation. If the U.S. continues to stubbornly cling to the illusion of using Taiwan to contain China, China will resolutely counter and fight back, Chinese Defense Ministry spokesman Tan Kefei said at a press conference. Last week, U.S. President Joe Biden seemingly contradicted the decades-long U.S. policy toward Taiwan when he said the U.S. was committed to protecting the island if China attacked it. The White House later said Biden's comments did not represent a change in policy toward the island. ABC News headliner, Biden calls out China's Taiwan actions as coercive, dated October 27, 2021. President Biden told leaders at the East Asia Summit on Wednesday that China's recent actions in Taiwan are coercive and undermine peace and stability in the region. Comments by Biden, who participated by video in the annual meeting of 18 Asian Pacific nations, come during a surge in Chinese military activity near the island that China regards as a renegade province and has vowed to reclaim by force if necessary. Biden said in a statement that the president also reiterated the U.S. commitment to the international rules-backed order and expressed concern over threats to the order, the White House said in a statement earlier today. He made clear that the United States will continue to stand with the allies and partners in support of democracy, human rights, rule of law, and freedom of the seas. Relations between Washington and Beijing have plunged to new lows since nosediving under former President Trump's administration, which adopted a confrontational approach on trade, visas, diplomatic representation, and educational exchanges. A U.S. nuclear submarine deal with Australia and the United Kingdom has also angered China, which claims most of the disputed South China Sea, and warned the pact would threaten regional stability. Some nations, such as Indonesia and Malaysia, also fear the pact would escalate tensions and spark an arms race. Indonesian President Joko Widodo told his Australian counterpart Scott Morrison just earlier last week that Indonesia does not want this region to become an arms race and a power protection that can threaten stability. Australia announced a $93 million package to support security, climate, and health efforts in Southeast Asia, while Morrison defended the new pact with the U.S. and the United Kingdom, saying it does not change Australia's commitment to the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Indeed, it reinforces it, he went on to say. He said Australia had no intention of acquiring nuclear weapons and remained deeply committed to nuclear non-proliferation. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida said his country shared serious concern with the Association of Southeast Asian Nations about challenges to the free and open maritime order to the East and South China Seas, according to Japanese Foreign Ministry. He did not mention China by name. Tokyo has more become vocal in defending the freedom of navigation and resolution of disputes based on international law. At a time, China expands its military power behind its shores, rattling neighbors with the construction of man-made islands and sending ships near the coasts. Meetings have been clouded by diplomatic standoff after military-ruled Myanmar skipped the summit in protest of the ASEAN's move to bar Senior General Min Aung Hlaing, whose forces seized power in February, from attending. In Biden's private conversations with ASEAN leaders, he denounced the horrific violence by the military junta in Myanmar as he looks to press U.S. leadership in the Pacific. The president also went on to add, in Myanmar, we must address the tragedy caused by the military coup, which is increasingly undermining regional stability. The U.S. stands for the people of Myanmar and calls for a military regime to end the violence, release all political prisoners, and return to the path of democracy. There have been concerns that European leaders may skip the summit and just send lower-ranking representatives if Myanmar general would be allowed to join, according to the diplomat. In a chairman's statement released after the summit Tuesday, the bloc's leaders urged Myanmar to give its envoy, Brunei Second Foreign Minister Urian Yusof, full access to the parties and release political detainees. Al Jazeera headliner, India tests nuclear-capable missile amid tensions with China. Dated October 28, 2021. India has test-fired a nuclear-capable intercontinental ballistic missile with a range of 3,125 miles or 5,000 kilometers from an island off the east coast amid rising border tensions with China. The successful launch on Wednesday was in line with India's policy to have credible minimum deterrence that underpins the commitment to no first use, said a government statement. The Agni 5 missile splashed down in the Bay of Bengal with a high degree of accuracy, said the statement issued on Wednesday night. Beijing's powerful missile arsenal has driven New Delhi to improve its weapon systems in recent years, with the Agni 5 believed to be able to strike nearly all of China. India is already able to strike anywhere inside neighboring Pakistan, its arch rival against whom has fought 3 wars since gaining independence from British colonialists in 1947. India has been developing its medium and long-range missile systems with and without nuclear warheads since the 1990s, amid increasing strategic competition with China and a major boost to the country's defense capabilities. Tension between them flared last year at the long-disputed section of their border in the mountainous Ladakh area. India is also increasingly suspicious of Beijing's efforts to heighten its influence in the Indian Ocean. Talks between Indian and Chinese commanders to disengage troops from key areas along with their border ended in a deadlock early this month, failing to ease a 17-month standoff that has sometimes led to deadly clashes. India and China fought a bloody war in 1962. And that's the end of today's latest news. Now my thoughts. It's a problem that is happening upon our foreign policy. Biden seems to want to quell the situation in Afghanistan, but heighten tensions in Syria. He seems to want to quell what's happening between Myanmar and Brunei, but wants to increase tensions in Taiwan. Now, who's whispering in his ear? Is it from the Secretary of State, Susan Rice? Is it the neocon cabinets, the pressure from Congress, divided along congressional lines regarding who the next enemy is? It's no longer the international terrorists. Al-Qaeda has been soundly defeated and diminished, and there is no pertinent threat to U.S. shores, and there never could be anyway, unless the entire world descended upon the country. Do we revisit the Cold War, as some people within the far-right extremes, like Steve Bannon and Tom Cotton, want to revisit the conflict with the Russians, or even in this case, China, or even North Korea? Or do we continue the 9/11 wars by keeping troops stationed in Syria and maybe even entertain the Israeli hard-on Iran? I don't know what to tell you which is next, because it seems that any of these scenarios are very plausible at the very time. Tensions are being inflamed. The U.S. is not helping since they are putting sanctions on Iran. And it seems that China, if we put sanctions on it, wouldn't be hurt by it, since they have a better trade market than Iran. You would put a gun to my head, I said Iran would be the next conflict, actually. And that's because of the influence of 2 major lobbies, which is the Gulf lobby headed under Saudi Arabia, and of course, the American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee, or AIPAC, which is a prominent influence in both the Democratic and Republican parties, and has been so for decades, as well as the Gulf, who pours in hundreds of millions over the last couple of decades into our congressional leaders' pockets as well as their lobbyists who lobby on their behalf. The people, the American people, will need to speak out. And that is you, the people who listen to these videos, who know what I'm about. I'm anti-war in the same fashion like certain libertarians are anti-war themselves and are trying to make a voice. People like Dave Smith, Reed Coverdale, Liberty Lockpod, Clint Russell, Will Porter, Kyle Anzalone, Connor Freeman, and the great Scott Horton, and Ron Paul, and Tom Woods, and I could go on and on and on. What we want is a new government that is made for the people and by the people, and regional hegemony in the Asian Pacific, as well as the Middle East. It's high time we start putting foreign lobbyists on notice and label them as foreign agents. Because if we don't, it'll be your sons and daughters that will be heading off to another needless conflict, whether it be Iran, China, Russia, North Korea, or maybe even a combination of all.